Jams aside, having a touch-and-go card that works is another headache for motorists looking to enter Malaysia. Philippine leader who's on a two-day state visit here has a new ORCHID hybrid named in his and his wife's honor. A new longevity center in Singapore looks at how to reverse aging and prolong disease-free years. It's Wednesday, September 7th. You're watching The Big Story with me, Harianto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss an episode. Now, let me begin by asking you a question. What's the first thing you consider if you decide to drive into Malaysia? Well, the traffic jams at the causeway or TRUSS checkpoint, right? Well, here's another thing to add to the headache, a touch-and-go card that works. Almost all touch-and-go cards held by Singapore drivers have been roadblocked. That's because the cards are deactivated after 12 months of disuse. And since the land borders were closed for 2 years, they cannot be used now. The cards are needed to pay for road tolls in Malaysia. Although new cards can be bought at 7-Eleven stores, they have been long sold out. To make matters worse, some unaware drivers had put money into their deactivated card after borders opened last April. And they can't get a refund because it requires a Malaysian bank account. Only amounts more than 100 ringgit can be refunded into a foreign bank account. Senior Transport Correspondent Christopher Tan joins me now to share more. Chris, what are some of the feedback from motorists who have been trying to get a refund for their deactivated touch-and-go card?
Now, if you go into the touch-and-go page on Facebook, you will find a lot of comments, a lot of negative comments from users on both sides of the causeway saying that they have been trying for a long time to get a refund on their unused balance in their deactivated card. And you know that this card, if you don't use it for 12 months, automatically becomes deactivated and you can't use it anymore. And whatever balance is locked in there, you have to apply to get your refund back from the company. And the usual excuses would be that, it's in process, or we haven't got your application is not filled in completely. There are a couple of mistakes in the application which doesn't tally with your other details. And when finally you get through to them on the phone, they'll say, oh, it's in process again and again, So you have to call them for a few times, and the users that we have talked to said they have been trying since April when borders reopened between the two countries.
What do you think can be done to improve the touch-and-go system?
I think the touch-and-go system, if you have driven to Malaysia, it works beautifully. Right? It rarely fails. You tap on the sensor and barrier lifts, and then you're on your way. It's a lot breezier than paying for cash and waiting for change and all that. So like all contactless card applications, it works wonderfully when it works. The only time now is that we are faced with people who have got money stuck in the cards and unable to get them out. And it's not a small sum. If we assume that more than half of Singapore motorists have driven to Malaysia, and I think that is a conservative estimate, we're talking about 300,000 cards. And some of them may own more than one card. And if you assume that each one has 30 or 50 ringgit left in the card, you're talking about 10 million ringgit, or at least that amount. So it's not a small sum. And as a big company whose shareholders include the major banks and the highway concessionaire, I think it is the responsibility of Touch and Go to get its act in order to see that refunds are made in a timely fashion. I think in the first place, what we should ask is, why couldn't they reactivate the deactivated cards, right? I think this is the deactivation, the disuse, or the 12 months of no use is not not because people are not going up voluntarily, because the borders are closed. So nobody could drive up. Borders were closed for more than 20 months, 24 months. So obviously all these cards would have been deactivated, no fault of the users. So I think as a big company and as a tech company, they could have easily reactivated the cards. The other thing is that the deactivated cards, you can still top up. So that is the strangest part. So a couple of users have actually, without their knowledge, thinking that they didn't have enough balance, so they topped up their deactivated card only to realize that their card was actually deactivated and couldn't be used, no matter what balance they had in there.
These touch and go cards are needed to pay for the road tolls when driving into Malaysia, but there has been a shortage of such card as well, Chris. So what are the alternatives to the touch and go cards?
You're right. I think ever since borders reopened, there has been a shortage. We've heard of people going up there, Malaysians included, that they couldn't find the cards anywhere, not in the usual places like petrol stations. And the only alternative that we've heard of are affiliated cards like the Watson card, which can be used for touch and go. These cards are sold by the proprietary stores, and you could get them if you're lucky. In Singapore, there is the EasyLink card. EasyLink tied up with Touch and Go to launch this dual currency card, and you can buy them at certain petrol kiosks. And I think even now they're running short. And these cards, the only thing is that you buy it here, you can't top it up easily. You have to download the e-wallet app, the Touch and Go e-wallet app, and then through that you top up your EasyLink Touch and Go card. So a few steps. So I think between the problem of so many deactivated cards that we have on hand and unavailability of new cards, I think people going up Malaysia, we have an additional roadblock, unnecessary roadblock.
Chris, before we go, touch and go card issues aside, any other general tips for drivers who are planning to drive into Malaysia?
I think driving into Malaysia, the main thing is the speed, right? I think in Singapore, we rarely exceed 90 kilometers per hour, but on Malaysian highways, the limit is 110, but of course, a lot of people drive faster than that, and we have to bear that in mind. Reaction times, overtaking, it's not so easy to overtake another vehicle because of the high speeds that you are going at, and the car that is adequate in Singapore may not be adequate up there. Bear in mind lane discipline, of course. Try not to go on the right lane. There are two lanes typically, sometimes three, but try not to go on the outermost right lane because that is essentially for overtaking. Even though you are going at 110, 120, there will be a lot of cars that are going much higher than that, and they will come, and the courteous ones will signal, and you should give way immediately. Some of them will, if you don't give way, they will tailgate you until you give way. So these kind of things you bear in mind. Try not to, road hog, right? Even if you are going 110, doesn't give you the right to be on a right lane. The other thing is that going at high speed, you have to make sure that your car is in good order, right? Tires are well inflated. Higher speeds normally, typically you don't inflate too high, don't overinflate. The dangers of overinflation at higher speeds is it's riskier. So the other thing, of course, if you're driving an EV, there aren't many charges along the way, so bear in mind that.
Chris, thank you for the insights, Senior Transport Correspondent Christopher Tan. On to the latest COE tender exercise, ending with higher premiums for all categories except for one. And premiums for larger and more powerful cars and EV notching a new record high for the second consecutive time, closing at $113,000. Category A premiums closing at $86,000, falling by almost $1,900. Now, Category C sees the largest increase, almost $6,000 to $64,989, while Category E increased by 1.2%. Earlier today, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and his wife had a new orchid plant named in their honor. Accompanying them at the Botanic Gardens were Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan and his wife. Named Dendrobium Ferdinand Luis Marcos, the orchid hybrid produces flower sprays of 50 to 70 centimeters in length. And the orchid is not the only thing that blooms. During Mr. Marcos's visit here, Singapore and the Philippines have signed several agreements to boost cooperation in digital, healthcare and counter-terrorism. Have we found the fountain of youth that helps slow aging as well as prevent diseases like cancer and cardiovascular disorders? Well, the National University Health System Centre for Healthy Longevity, which opens today, is conducting an ongoing research on biomarkers to measure aging. Well, here is multimedia journalist Kimberly Zhao, who shares more about the tests being conducted at the centre.
Have you ever wished aging could be slowed down or even reversed? That might not be such a distant dream. At the NUHS Centre for Healthy Longevity, researchers are studying how to prolong health span, or the healthy years in one's lifespan, by delaying aging. Their aim? To enhance Singaporeans' health span by 5 years. Among other studies, the researchers are working to develop aging clocks to derive approximate estimates of Singaporeans' biological ages, the age of their physical bodies, to contrast them to their chronological ages, the age reflected on their passports. To do this, they collect samples and information from research participants, including their hand grip strength and 3D images of their face. Samples from volunteers are sent to labs, both overseas and locally, to be analysed.
Okay, I'm actually a participant with the eBIOS Healthy Aging Program. What I went through is actually very interesting. The research actually requires, they actually test on my cognitive ability, apart from the biological aspect, which is taking blood samples and saliva samples. There's also the physical strength aspect as well. So that will actually give me holistic findings of my current health condition. Yeah, I'm 56 years old. My biological age is actually half of my current age.
My age is 32. The reason why I did it is because a lot of my family members suffer from age-related diseases at quite an early age, earlier than most people. Some even get it at like 35, and then live the rest of their life in a very low-quality life, like, dementia and Alzheimer's and all this, right? So the reason why I joined is because I'm hoping maybe I can be, if I go through this and maybe receive some advice, I can maybe help advise them and such if I go through this, or be the odd one out to break this cycle per se. Yeah.
By focusing on aging as a whole, instead of analysing chronic diseases in silo, the centre hopes to shift from sick care, or medical intervention to manage diseases after they happen, to preventive care, intervening earlier during one's healthy years to prevent or delay the onset of such diseases in the first place. Kimberly Zhao for the Straits Times.
In a bid to deliver profits, FOODPANDA will be laying off its staff. While it's unknown how many people will lose their jobs, it's reported that the food delivery company will cut about 60 of its 1,200 staff in Singapore. Now, this comes just months after it launched its regional headquarters here. Now, FOODPANDA has been operating across Asia for 10 years. An email statement from its German parent company, Delivery Hero, said it's facing pressure to show profits, so there is a critical need to reduce costs. In her first full day in office, Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss will convene her senior ministers for an inaugural cabinet meeting. They include the most diverse top team in British history ever, with no white men occupying any of the top 4 offices. The team faces a daunting in-tray of issues, most notably decades-high inflation and how to deal with rising energy bills. Planning a visit to Japan? Well, whether it's for work or play, you'll be glad to know that the steadily falling Japanese yen has weakened even further. As of today, 100 yen is worth just under 1 Singapore dollar. The depreciation of the yen is due mainly to Japan's central bank's desire to keep interest rates at rock bottom, while central banks around the world are steadily increasing theirs. And a quick update on Malaysia's mask mandate for those looking to cross the causeway. Masks are optional in indoor settings with immediate effect, except on public transport and in medical facilities, similar to the current rule in Singapore. Now, those are our top stories today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by clicking the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. See you tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.